Hello YouTube! Today we're going to be going over the Dragon Sicilian. So after the moves e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, we're going to have the dragon with g6, we're going to have bishop e3, beginning the Yugoslav variation after the move pawn to f3, knight c6, queen d2, castles, and then we're going to be taking a look at this line specifically, the move 9, castles queenside. So if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, please hit that subscribe button and click on your notification icon. Now the way I was always taught the dragon when I was younger is that there's basically two options here. There's the option to play knight takes d4, bishop d4, bishop e6, and of course there's also the option to play this move pawn to d5. Now today, the move pawn to d5 has pretty much taken over as kind of the main move in the position, because we now know that the move knight d4, bishop d4, bishop e6 is sort of unsound. It leads to major advantage white, or possibly decisive advantage white, because white's attack just seems to land first. So the question is, like, why is this? Why is white's attack landing first in these knight d4 lines? So we're going to take a look at that today. So after the move knight takes d4, bishop d4, bishop e6, the key critical move to lead to major advantage white in this position is supposed to be this move king to b1. So why does this normal looking safety move cause black all kinds of trouble in this position? Why does this basically, it practically refutes this line for black, which is why no top level competitors will really try this anymore with the black pieces. Well, the reason for that has to do with black not being able to play queen a5 now. So the reason that black can't play queen a5 after king to b1 is because, let's say black were to play queen a5 here. So we have queen a5. White can now respond to that with this move knight to d5. And then on queen takes d2, we're throwing this move knight takes e7 in between. So before we capture back the queen, we're throwing in knight e7 check. The black king has to move, then we're taking back. And then after, say, a rook move or something, we could simply exchange on f6 and bring the knight back to d5, and we've completely consolidated our extra pawn. This position should be decisive advantage white. White's doing really, really well here. White is up a pawn. So because of this, black is actually forced to two-step this queen. He's forced to play this move queen c7 to avoid this move knight to d5, get the rook out of the way on the f8 square, play the rook on f8 over to c8, and then bring his queen to the a5 square, all because we got this move in, king to b1. Now what's interesting is there's another kind of version of this line that gets played by black where it is actually sound, and that's if we go all the way back to this castle's queenside here with move 9 for white. There's of course two other options in the position. There's bishop c4 and g4. So g4 is basically a move that people will sometimes play to avoid the d5 lines. And here, black will pretty much have to play the move bishop e6, but this is actually going to be a much more sound version of the other line, because now after castle's queenside, the king is still on the c1 square. So now black can play knight d4, bishop d4, queen a5, and have that queen move to a5 all in one move. This avoids knight d5, because now when queen captures queen on d2, that move is with check. And we do not have time to play knight captures e7 in between. So we would have to take back, and now we can simply handle that knight on the d5 square before the e7 pawn is hanging. We could simply play bishop takes d5, and now the e7 pawn is no longer hanging, and here black's position is completely fine. So that's kind of the main difference, is black is not having to two-step that queen. That saves a whole tempo, and in the dragon, where kings are castled on opposite wings, you have one king on the queen side, one king on the king side. That one extra tempo is the difference between getting checkmated and not getting checkmated. So that is actually a huge deal. So if we go back to this castle's queenside line, basically we're kind of trying to deny black the option to play knight d4, bishop e6, because we are having this extra move to throw in this key safety move king b1, which prevents the queen a5 happening immediately. So we instead have queen c7, and now we're going to have the move pawn to h4, we're going to have rook fc8, and now we're going to have the move pawn to h5, and now we're going to have queen a5. So the critical thing to understand here is now queen a5 is sound because this rook is no longer on the f8 square, and that actually makes a very big deal. It seems like it shouldn't, but it does. The reason is if I now play knight d5 and they play queen d2, note that queen d2 is not with check, but when I play this check, the king has the ability to sidestep that check by attacking the knight. And that's what makes black's position not just sound. Here, black should be completely winning after king f8. He hits the knight. We have to spend a tempo to take back our queen, because queens are bigger than knights. So we would have to play something like rook d2, king e7. Black is up a whole piece here. So we would be dead in this position. So white would be down a whole piece, and white would be dead. So knight d5 no longer works in this position, so we would just have to continue with our attack. We would have to play h takes g6 and h takes g6. And now there is this threat in this position of rook takes c3 followed by queen takes a2 because there's a double attack on the a2 square and there's an attack on the c3 square. So we're going to have to play this move pawn to a3 to safeguard that. The rook is going to go to b8, basically just preparing to continue attacking with b5 and b4, and meanwhile white's going to continue with his attack by playing this move bishop d3. Now bishop d3 is kind of a critical idea within the position, is again, white is trying to set up this move knight to d5, but when he does play knight d5 and something captures on d5 and he recaptures with the pawn, he wants the bishop to open up and be prepared to take on the g6 square. The primary reason for this is he intends to meet the move b5 with the move queen g5, pinning that pawn to the queen and slowing down black's attack, but also getting the queen out of the line of fire of the exchange so he can continue to play for mate with the move knight to d5, bishop d5, e d5, with this bishop flying into the g6 square. So basically here, white's position is supposed to be decisive because white is one tempo up in the main line of the position. Black is one tempo down. He had to two-step his queen from c7 to a5. So what is black's typical reply here, and how should white proceed? Well, white, for the most part, is going to proceed with knight d5 on pretty much anything. Obviously, if pawn to b4, we're going to take the queen. So they have to do something to break the spin. So normally they play this move pawn to d5, which is an aggressive move in the middle of the board, which also prepares the move pawn to b4. This is just a very typical move. Now, there's two moves that can kind of be played here, and they're both supposed to be decisive advantage white. There is this move pawn to e5, which is supposed to lead to advantage white, but I view it as a kind of a very complex move. It's a complex position. But I like the move knight d5 because it's just more in fitting with what the plan has kind of always been in this position, which is just to bring that knight to the d5 square and just kind of declare that the attack is coming and that the attack has arrived. Now, at this point, it kind of seems logical that we have to take that knight on d5 with something. So like if bishop takes d5, e takes d5, we're opening up that bishop on d3, and that bishop is going to fly into the g6 square with serious effect. So after, say, pawn to b4, we're going to be continuing with our attack, just absolutely ignoring everything, just playing bishop g6 and trying to get to the black king. So now we're going to have something like b takes a3. We can also have f takes g6 here. In any case, white is supposed to get there first. So like, for example, b takes a3, the move is going to be rook h7, which is going to end the game. Because we cannot really play knight. If we play knight takes h7, we're going to have bishop h7, king h7, queen g7 mate. So we're dealing with these dual kind of pins here that are going on with the queen and the bishop, which also tie down the knight. And this means that that h7 square is active and available for the rook. So we're going to have rook h7, rook takes b2 check, and now what's interesting here is the move bishop takes b2 and king a1 should both work. Bishop b2 is probably the most accurate. And this leads to black being able to throw in his own mate threat, queen b4. But again, black is just kind of one tempo short of making everything work. White is going to be able to land this attack first. So bishop takes f7 check is going to land the attack first. So the idea is, if we, of course, have king h7, rook h1 check is going to end the game. That's basically going to be mate in like 2 or 3. If knight h5, queen g7 is mate, or we could even play rook h5, bishop h6, rook h6 is mate. They're both mate, actually. And also if knight h7, we have basically we just have mate. So we have mate in a lot of different ways. So king f7 is forced. So king f7 is forced, and then we're going to have queen g7, and then we're going to have king to e8. And this position should be completely winning for white, but it's kind of the most decisive way to win is to actually take advantage of the king position and just defend the bishop on b2. So we should actually just play queen h8, king d7, and then queen f6, which holds the bishop on b2 and simultaneously takes advantage of this pin. And white is up a decisive amount of material here, and he's not getting mated. So white is absolutely winning in this position. So if we go back to bishop g6, this other move, f takes g6, was another possibility, and then we're going to have queen g6, we're going to have b takes a3, and we're going to have basically the same idea, rook to h7, rook b2, and now bishop b2, again, should be completely winning. And they can throw in this check, they can throw in a2, obviously they don't have time to take, everything has to be done with check now, queen g7, mate is a threat. So a2 check, king a1, knight h5, and then this is mate. So black is getting mated this way. Now, the only other deviation here is if earlier, instead of taking with the h-pawn, they take with the f-pawn. This is another possibility, and these positions are going to be very, very similar. F takes, we're going to play the same idea. A3, rook b8, same idea. Bishop d3, b5, queen g5, same idea. But a lot of times people will now throw in this move bishop f7, because the f7 square is available. And interestingly enough, you should just play the same idea. Knight d5 should be completely winning. So like knight d5, and then if, for example, knight takes d5, we're going to have bishop takes g7, and bishop takes g7 should be completely decisive. For example, king g7, queen h6 check, king f6, e takes d5 is a completely winning attack against the black king. Another way that this could go would be maybe bishop takes d5 instead of knight d5. We're going to have e takes d5. We're going to have queen coming back to d8. And now rook h7, a very similar idea from last time, is going to be decisive as well. So for example, we're going to have the possibility of knight takes h7, queen takes g6, threatening mate. Knight goes back to f6, bishop f5. And then we have this check, we have queen f5, and then we simply take the rook, we take the queen, and we're just up a decisive amount of material here. We're up a whole bunch of pawns and just have an awesomely decisive position. Interestingly enough, if they do this the other way, we end up with a nearly identical position. And by I mean the other way is if they take back with the king, it actually transposes like king back, and then bishop f5 is going to be nearly identical. It's actually, it is an identical position. So we end up in the same spot whether they take back with the knight or if they take back with the king. But both of these positions are supposed to be a decisive advantage white. So that's basically how you handle, like if we just go back to, these lines here. This is basically how you're supposed to handle this line here with knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop e6. We're supposed to play this move king b1, and basically black is supposed to be down a tempo on the main line of his attacking ideas, and white is supposed to be one tempo up, and white's attack is always supposed to land first. So just kind of remember the primary ideas of making sure that you play pawn to a3 to avoid this exchange sack on c3, making sure that you play bishop d3 to set up your knight d5, and you should be landing your attack one tempo before black manages to land his attack. And white should have somewhere between a major to decisive advantage in these positions. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you can use some of these ideas in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.